Good evening, welcome to Crime Beat. I'm Anthony Robart. Tonight, a series of seemingly random shootings lead investigators to a serial killer hungry for notoriety and fame. Here now is Mr. Murder, 4 lives lost.
On September 10, 2010, Spence was enjoying a family barbecue at his mother-in-law's place.
Jahmeel Spence was at a birthday party. He left the party around 9 p.m. to go get a juice from a local corner store for one of his kids. And as he came back through the laneway, he was ambushed by a gunman who fired, I believe it was 15 rounds at Mr. Spence, and he was struck numerous times.
He was shot in the head, and as he lay down, the gunman pumped more bullets into his dying body.
Probably within 100 feet of that townhouse. The residents could hear the gunshots, and several neighbors also heard the gunshots, and one of the residents actually in the townhouse where the birthday party was actually saw the gunman running away. Jahmeel Spence was a hardworking father of 2 young children, engaged to be married to the mother of those children.
This is something that she wrote to Jahmeel. You are my heart, you are my soul, my everything. I love you, baby. Siobhan Clark. If anyone has any information, please come forward.
He was, by all accounts, a very likable young man.
He had no apparent enemies. He was a peacemaker. His mother said he tried to diffuse conflicts. It was a real puzzle as to why someone would want to kill him.
Late last night, the quiet of a Toronto neighborhood was shattered by gunfire, and when it was over, 2 young men were mortally wounded. Now the hunt is on for a killer.
This is where 2 friends were fatally shot in a hail of bullets around 10:30 last night, as one stood next to his car, the other on the sidewalk, in what this witness calls a drive-by shooting.
I don't understand.
It's September 29th, almost 3 weeks after Jahmeel Spence's inexplicable murder, when 2 young men, Courtney Facey and Mike James, were gunned down in a laneway at Weston Road in Lawrence.
These are good youths. Don't associate them with nobody, see? They're not associated with nobody but themselves.
They're really good guys. This didn't need to happen.
There's usually something that will provide a motivation. In these cases, there was absolutely nothing. With that one, it was very dumbfounding, really, to investigate that, and it's tough. You have no starting point. We're looking at everything and anything we could to try and figure out why someone would want to shoot Courtney and Mike.
Police are puzzled because these 2 young men, like Spence, have no criminal past, no known enemies.
You have now 3 victims, and the 2 incidents have not been linked at all yet.
They had no idea why any of the 3 men were killed.
Shots just rapidly going off. It was just going one after another after another.
Bullets tore through this parking lot on Greenbrae Circuit.
By like the 10th shot, we realized that it was gunshots.
Evidence markers marked the spot where shell casings were found in the parking lot.
We tried to go out the side door and there were police tape everywhere, and I almost knocked it down because I was running out the door and I didn't know it was there. I shouldn't have to be scared of where I live.
The 4th victim, who was gunned down 200 meters from where the first victim was gunned down in the same suburb in Toronto, he was shot 27 times, 15 times I believe with the 9mm and a dozen times with the .45 caliber weapon, including the fatal shot to the head.
Carl Cole had left his house that morning, apparently in a very good mood, and his daughter tried to call him in the early evening hours and had a very short conversation with him, but told us after the fact he was stressed about something. Something was going on, but he wouldn't pick up his phone after that call. There's one witness who says Carl Cole is standing in the parking lot and the shooter is shooting from the driver's side of the vehicle, of the Chrysler 300. Whereas another witness says, no, Carl Cole is standing in the parking lot, the shooter is standing out there with them, and then starts shooting him and then gets into the driver's seat of the Chrysler 300, which we then find out, of course, is Carl Cole's Chrysler 300. The November 24th murder of Carl Cole is when I first became involved in the case. Up until then, the murder of Jahmeel Spence and then the murders of Facey and James were being handled by other homicide investigators.
Coming up, with 3 separate crime scenes, police start to gather clues that might connect these seemingly random shootings. Welcome back to Crime Beat. While detectives gather evidence after 4 men are brutally gunned down, one mother searches for answers as to why her son was targeted. We now return to Mr. Murder, 4 lives lost.
I was upstairs in my apartment and it was a beautiful September evening. And I went downstairs because the weather was nice. My husband came down with my cell phone and told me somebody's trying to get a hold of me. The phone keep ringing and it's the same number over and over. So I answered and the person said, I think Mike got shot. She was on the balcony, on her balcony looking down, and Mike is on the ground and somebody else is on the ground. And I think by that time she was saying that the ambulance and the police was there.
From what we can see from the forensic analysis of the scene, it looks like he was actually on the hood of the car with his back turned to the shooter when the shooting occurred.
Mike James had managed to get around the corner to try to take shelter in an alcove, and the gunman continued to fire at him. He collapsed there in the alcove, and one bullet hole still exists in the door frame where he was taking cover.
So I stayed on the phone, and she got on the scene, and she told me, yes, it's him, they're putting him in the ambulance.
And Courtney Facey is declared deceased at the scene, but Mike James is taken to the hospital.
She was going towards the office, and I can hear on the phone they're telling her, get back, get back. And she's telling them, his mom is on the phone, his mom is on the phone. She wants to know what happened. I was hysterical.
And when she asks where he's been shot, they only say in the buttocks, which raises her hopes that her son will survive. Police didn't want to say over the phone the grave nature of the injuries that he had suffered.
So I was still hysterical, but that I felt, okay, it's not the worst, because, the buttocks, I wasn't expecting what the news was next. They told me they can't give me any more information, I need to go to the hospital. When I got there, there was somebody outside the hospital screaming, hysterically crying at the top of their lungs. Later I got to realize it was Courtney's mom. We went into the hospital and told them why we were there. They told us that he's still in the operating room. We were sitting there waiting, and then 2 doctors came out and told me, you need to come right now. And I got into the room. There was 2 police officers there, a female and a male. And my son was laying on the bed.
So Joanna steps into her son's room at the hospital and realizes he's fighting for his life.
I started screaming. He was laying on the bed. His chest was open, like cut open, and there was a bunch of machines all over. And when I looked again, there was a plastic bag over his feet and plastic bag in his hands. And I asked them why, and they said to see if he fired a gun. So that's why the plastic was over his hand, so nobody would touch it to destroy whatever evidence, if there was, that it was looking for. I tried talking to him for a little bit, like to let him know I'm here and he's gonna be okay. And then they told me I have to go back in the waiting room. I think it was 2 doctors again, the same 2 people that came and got me before, came and said, sorry, but we lost him. So I started screaming. I told him no, I need to go see him, but he was all covered up. Just his face was, his head was out of the covers. I was hugging him and touching him and talking to him. Just crying and talking to him, telling him his son needs him, we need him. I wanted to know if my son was involved in anything that could have had this happen to him. I was assured that he wasn't involved like in any gang or drugs or stuff like that. So that was a big relief for me, knowing that there was nothing like that.
Michael James, who's 23 years old, just graduated from Humber College Chef School.
He loved cooking. He was proud of the different dishes he made, especially when he started working at restaurants and stuff. He was even part of the team that cooked for the Queen when they had the running of the Queen's plate. From the time Mike could stand on his own 2 feet, he loved that. He just loved music, and every time he heard music, he would just dance. But his favorite was soca music because that's what he grew up with, soca music. When Mike was 12 years old, he got burned pretty severely. He developed a heart condition, and the medication that he was taking for the burns and the heart condition is what led to the hearing loss. When he was in high school, he joined a dance group. The group was called Ill Skills. And so it's a motivational speaking group and a dance group.
When I was 12 years old, I got into an accident, which I got burned. I had to take a pill for my burns. I lost some of my hands and stuff. You know?
You would talk to him and it's difficult for him to hear, but when the music comes on, he doesn't miss a beat. That's what they love doing together, Mike and Courtney and other friends, dancing. Dancing was Mike's passion.
As you probably realized, Mike James was deaf and he had his back turned to the shooting, and I don't know if he even heard it coming, and he was shot in the back. I still get a little emotional thinking about that. You know, the last moments of Mike James' life. I think Courtney Facey saw it coming. I don't think Mike James ever saw it coming.
Next on Crime Beat. Police are about to identify a suspect and try to catch him using a wiretap. That's after the break. Welcome back to Crime Beat. 4 men shot and killed in 3 separate shootings in the fall of 2010. Now, ballistics and DNA evidence are linking them all together. Here is Mr. Murder, 4 lives lost.
With the help of security cameras in the area, police were able to identify a vehicle that may have been involved in the murders. Investigators are looking for a black BMW X5 SUV like this one, fleeing the scene at the time of the shooting.
What I'm looking for particularly is a black SUV was seen leaving the scene shortly thereafter, going northbound on Western Road.
We also found it about half an hour before the murder coming southbound. So we had a bit of an idea which direction it had come from and which direction it fled to.
This is a vehicle that will play a key significant role with our investigation. Hopefully, if there's any type of gunshot residue in a certain type of material, it will stay there, and that's what we'll be looking for.
On October the 9th, Toronto Police Service received a 911 call from a resident in the area of Edward Campion School, which is in Scarborough, and that witness had heard gunshots coming from the schoolyard and looked out his window and saw a dark-colored SUV fleeing from the scene.
The getaway car vehicle from the James and Facey murders was a BMW. The person who calls police and says someone's shooting a gun off, he sees a black BMW leave that scene.
The officers responded and found a number of .45 caliber shell casings at the rear of the school and some impact marks on a maintenance door, really at the back of the school. And huge kudos to the police officer who saw it, but noticed a puddle of spit on the ground close to where the shell casings were. And our forensic officers attended and swabbed that spit, and we got a DNA match.
They didn't know it at the time, but that would be a huge piece of evidence to identify the gunman for these 3 unconnected shootings. Carl Cole, the 4th victim, he was shot with a 9mm weapon and a .45 caliber weapon. The 9mm that was used in the first 3 killings, as well as a .45 caliber gun. From the ballistics, they know that the same 9mm used in all 4 shootings and the .45 caliber gun that was in the schoolyard where the spit was is used in the November 24th murder of Carl Cole. So police are discovering that it's probably the same shooter in all 4 murders in 2 different areas of the city over a 75-day period. They're starting to ballistics and other evidence are leading them to the identity of the gunman. By February 2011, the police have identified the spit as that of Mark Moore, whom they believe is involved in all 4 shootings.
March 10th was Mark Moore's birthday, and there was a shooting at a nightclub. Witnesses there reported a male who had pulled a gun out and discharged that gun into the ceiling after a physical dispute or fight between several men in the nightclub. And the suspect who fired the gun into the ceiling was observed by security to go into a local parking garage and then come out of that parking garage in a BMW X5. So this was all reported to the investigators from 52 Division, and ultimately they were able to identify Mark Moore. Mark Moore was arrested a couple of weeks after that incident and charged with offenses relating to that incident. He didn't get bail. He was held in custody during the duration of our investigation. On the first anniversary of Jahmeel Spence's murder, we had a wiretap ongoing, and we were listening to Mark Moore's phone calls from the jail that he was in.
And they're using a commonly known technique of stimulating the wire. So they put out false information to try to foster conversation between the accused and people close to him, and he will reveal incriminating details, as Mark Moore did for police.
And we did a press conference on the anniversary of the murder and released to the public that we were looking for a blue Honda Accord
Police say Jahmeel had no criminal record and they're looking for any information about a light blue Honda Accord that was seen driving erratically in the area the night of the murder.
No matter how small you think that information is, please understand that it is extremely important to this investigation.
Police knew that Mark Moore drove two vehicles, a blue Honda Accord and a black BMW SUV. So police purposely led with this information that there was a blue Honda Accord close to the Spence shooting scene.
Which had been seen fleeing from the scene, which of course was complete fiction. We quite frankly didn't know if he had used the Honda Accord or that he owned or the BMW X5 that he owned. But his reaction in the phone calls after that press release was very clear that it was the Honda that he had used, and he was quite anxious for his girlfriend to get the registration papers changed with the Ministry of Transportation because they still indicated that the Honda was blue, and after that murder he had painted it black.
Why don't you bring the Honda papers in and change the color in it?
He was actually on the phone with her when she was at the Ministry of Transportation changing the color of the vehicle on the registration from blue to black, so we capture that entire transaction on the wiretap.
Hi. Fine, are you? Okay. I'd like to change the color. Instead of blue, it's black.
Cool. All right. So I need you to fill out the following.
When his girlfriend informed Mr. Moore that we had seized his Honda, he really lost it on the phone.
Did you ask them why they're taking your car?
Yeah, for all of these, that's what they're saying, for this.
Okay, they said I murdered her, right?
Yeah.
Anything that you say could be used
against me, I know that.
Do not say nothing, even if it's the simplest question, the smallest question, do not answer.
So his reaction, really, for someone, like I said, who supposedly had nothing to do with the Jahmeel Spence murder, was way over the top.
I always told you, when cops come to your door, slam your door. You don't need to talk to them about nothing. You don't need to talk to them.
And then when he talks to his girlfriend, he phrases it, hypothetically speaking, the car wasn't even there. It was around the corner. It was parked down the block. And there's going to be no forensic evidence in that car because from what I hear, the guy ran from the shooting scene to the car, which was around the corner, so it's not like there's going to be any blood or anything in the car. He's got first-hand knowledge of it because he was the one who was there.
Coming up, police try and make sense of Mark Moore's motive, and the families learn their loved one's murders might have been prevented had a key witness come forward sooner. Mark Moore has just been charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder. He maintains his innocence, but a key witness is about to speak up. Here is Mr. Murder, 4 lives lost.
Today, the families of Courtney Facey, Mike James, and Jahmeel Spence were called to the police station, where they learned this man, 27-year-old Mark Moore, was charged with all 3 murders, along with the November 2010 murder of Carl Cole, the attempted murder of an employee at this Eglinton Avenue jewelry store in August of 2010, schoolyard, and drive-by shootings.
It was brilliant police work, all the things that they did or had to do in order to get those evidence.
Police say Moore is not a member of a gang, though he thought of himself as a gangster.
Send my video shoot right now, you know what I'm saying? Shoot to get this money, you already know what time it is.
Mark, before he was implicated in these murders, had a long series of petty offenses.
I was very, very angry that he was involved with the law before. He himself got shot before, so he should have known how painful it is. And for him to turn around and inflict that kind of pain on 4 innocent people.
You already know what time it is. Shout out to Sweet TV.
As a 17-year-old, he was shot with an AK-47 in the face. It left him horribly disfigured. He required 6 surgeries, to repair the damage, and he says that that was the reason that he couldn't get a legitimate job. But he was already well known to police by the time he was shot in the face.
When Mark Moore was arrested last week, his mother told a newspaper her son was innocent of all 4 murders. She also denied her 27-year-old had anything to do with shootings in schoolyards, nor an armed robbery at this jewelry store, where $500,000 worth of goods were stolen. Now police say Hyacinth Moore was involved herself.
Mark grew up in a family with a single mother who supported a good number of children, and several of the others were in frequent conflict with the law.
What mother, if you're a good mother, will teach their children to do bad things?
She was arrested at her Scarborough apartment yesterday afternoon, and today the 49-year-old appeared in court charged with assisting her son by allegedly destroying evidence from the jewelry store heist and the murder of Jahmeel Spence. Police cannot remember a case of this magnitude, with a staggering 54 charges laid today.
If these allegations are proven in court, he's an evil man.
People in this Scarborough neighborhood tell me they've lived in fear for months. One man told me the night Carl Cole was murdered, his wife was almost a victim herself.
So if it wasn't for 5 minutes later, my wife leaving, she would have been caught in the one in the back.
This store owner, with a bullet hole in his door frame, welcomed the news of the arrest.
We feel more safe.
When Joanna returns to the scene, she can still see the bullet hole in the door frame where her son was trying to take cover against Mark Moore.
My son got killed here 11 years ago. Car was parked right here, so it was right around here. What I think compelled him to commit these crimes? Evil. Pure evil.
Shortly after Mark Moore is charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder, he makes a Crime Stoppers call, pretending to be somebody else.
Toronto Crime Stoppers, how may I help you?
Hey, hi, how you doing?
Not bad, how are you?
Okay, my name is Christopher Parker.
It's obvious he's in his own voice, and he's in an intercepted call from the jail.
I know that that person did not do those murders.
Okay, how do you know?
How do I know? Because I heard through the grapevine who did those murders, right?
He says to the Crime Stoppers, they have no evidence against him. I don't know why they're pinning it on him. I know he didn't do it.
I could almost put my life on it that it's not him. I know it's not him.
We recovered the 9mm in the months after Mark Moore's arrest, really during a completely unrelated search warrant at a property in Scarborough. And it was forensically linked to all 4 murders.
Heading into trial, there were cell phone records that placed Mark Moore at or near the scenes of the shootings. There were Mark Moore communications with his girlfriend. There's the evidence of Kevin Williams, known as Mayhem Moriarty, who was there and witnessed the shooting of Mike James and Courtney Facey.
Kevin Williams was actually a successful and up-and-coming rap star. Very talented, and from the same neighborhood as Mark Moore. And Mark Moore fancied himself a rapper as well. And so he befriended Kevin Williams and relied on him to further his rap career. And Kevin Williams, wanting to further himself as a rap star, especially in the gangster rap genre, felt that hanging around with Mark Moore would give him more credibility in the gang scene on the street. So it was a bit of a two-way relationship. So within hours of the Jahmeel Spence murder, Kevin Williams is reaching out to Mark Moore via text message, basically to say, hey, what's up? And Moore responds with, terrorizing the boroughs, turn on the news. And Kevin Williams turns on the news and sees that there's been a murder in the boroughs, Scarborough. Shortly after the Carl Cole murder, again, Kevin Williams reaches out to Mark Moore via text and asks him what's going on, and Mark Moore responds that, I got the guy in the Bray that robbed us. And that's likely a reference back to the jewelry store robbery, where Mark Moore has told Kevin Williams that they got ripped off during the fencing process of the jewelry that they had stolen, and he's alleging that he's now managed to shoot and kill the man who supposedly ripped them off, which of course was complete fiction. So ultimately we arrested Kevin Williams and his girlfriend for participating in that ARAX jewelry store robbery. So he was in custody. Through cellular records, I can make a pretty good case that Kevin Williams was with Mark Moore when he shot Facey and James. So I went to the correctional center where Kevin Williams was in custody, and I sat down with him. And I told him, you're going to get charged as being a party to the offense of this double murder. And he contemplated that, and it took about 45 minutes, and then finally he admitted that he was there and that the person who had actually done the shooting was Sparky. Sparky being a very old nickname that Mark Moore went by. He didn't ask for any favors, and he was put back into the wing at the jail where he had been before, and he was beat up one night by other inmates because they believed he had talked to the police.
I'm sure that one of Williams' motivations in implicating Moore was to avoid liability. You know, whether he was technically speaking guilty or not, he had to think that he had a high degree of vulnerability to being prosecuted and convicted. He was in the same car as Mark. He never went to the police. It stood to reason that the shooter was more likely in the passenger seat than the driver's seat. So I'd be very surprised if Mr. Williams did not think that he was in great danger of being convicted of those murders.
I don't think anybody's calling Kevin Williams an honorable man. And if he knew Mark Moore had killed Jahmeel Spence, why didn't he say something then and prevent the murders of Facey and James and Carl Cole?
I was happy that Kevin Williams changed his mind and decided to cooperate and testify that it was Mike Moore that pulled the trigger. It's just unfortunate that he held that secret with him for so long. My son, Mike James, Courtney Facey, and Carl Cole would have still been alive today because the police would have arrested Mark Moore for the killing of Jahmeel Spence. And even though part of me believe he was instrumental in helping put Mark Moore behind bars for the killing of my son, Mike James, I still hold him responsible. The only difference between Kevin Williams and Mark Moore in the killing of my son, Mike James, is that Kevin Williams did not pull the trigger.
Coming up, Mark Moore's defense lawyer questions the prosecution's tactics when incriminating rap lyrics are entered into evidence. Aspiring rapper Mark Moore has pleaded not guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder. But will his hunger for notoriety and fame ultimately hurt him at trial? We now return to the conclusion of Mr. Murder, 4 lives lost.
I'm getting money, I'm getting high.
There was a rather infamous introduction video to Mark Moore called Getting This Money. That was released early 2011, and that video yielded a lot of good evidence for us as well.
In Mark Moore's case, his lyrics aren't simply lyrics about crimes. They're confessional statements to his own reign of terror. Mark Moore described his unique bullets that had, he called golden ones that spit rubies. And that refers to the red centers of the bullets that he had, which were quite distinctive. Mark Moore was so bent on increasing his street credibility that he thought he should murder these people in cold blood.
The prosecution got great mileage in our trial by introducing Mark Moore's rap music, particularly his lyrics, as being confessional. Now, there were certain things in those lyrics that were very inconvenient for Mark, and they seemed to suggest a connection with some of these crimes. The nature of rap music itself detracts from the cogency of using it against accused in criminal trials. Rap music, by its nature, is autobiographical. It's always in the first person. You know, for example, no one, I think, really believes that Johnny Cash shot a man in Reno just to watch him die. But if that was in a rap song, a lot of people would make that assumption.
I like rap music. A lot of rap music that you hear today has a lot of violence in it. Makes you wonder, what is rap? Why killing another person will make you big in rap?
Jahmeel Spence, tragically, was in the rear laneway at the back of a townhouse complex on Greenbrae Circuit. And Mark Moore had animosity towards Greenbrae Circuit because several men from Greenbrae had beat up his younger brother earlier in the summer at a barbecue. That was just Mark Moore going into an area he didn't like and shooting the first person he saw.
You know, the mere fact that something bad has happened to a member of your family in a general neighborhood is hardly any motive why you would want to kill someone that you absolutely unconnected with that event that you found in that neighborhood.
In 2001, Mark Moore was shot in the face with an AK-47 in an apartment building right across the street from the Facey and James murder. So again, he didn't like the area. This
Bizarre theory that simply because Facey and James were in the same neighborhood where Mark was shot 9-10 years before, that somehow that gave a motive.
We'll never really know why Mark Moore killed Carl Cole.
On November the 24th of 2010, there's multiple phone calls through the day between Mark Moore and Carl Cole. The nature of that relationship, we don't know. And it also could be Mark Moore trying to generate a fall guy for his explanation to Kevin Williams about the ripoff from the fencing of the jewelry store merchandise.
Some speculation that Carl Cole may have owed him an insignificant amount of money.
He is a serial killer, by definition, of innocent random people.
Justice Dambrod, on at least 3 occasions, had a slip of the tongue in his charge to the jury in which he called Mr. Moore Mr. Murder. Now, he immediately corrected himself, but then he did it again 2 more times. I think it was prejudicial to the jury, but some people would think, perhaps unfairly, that Mark Moore was secretly flattered by this.
A 30-year-old Toronto man found guilty of 4 killings was sentenced to life in prison today. Mark Moore will serve time for 4 counts of first-degree murder with no chance of parole for 25 years. In a statement, the judge called Moore a morally depraved man, lacking in humanity. 4 men were brutally shot by Moore in a 75-day killing spree in 2010.
So he was arrested in late 2011. And he wasn't convicted until 2015. So that's 4 years of full-time work by these prosecutors and the investigative team to get those convictions. And we convicted him of the murders. We convicted his girlfriend of the accessory charges. We convicted his mother of the accessory charges. We convicted Kevin Williams and his girlfriend of the armed robbery charges.
It was very telling when, after the verdict, Mark Moore stood up in the box, and while still maintaining his innocence, he said, quote, "Now the world knows my name."
What I do remember In court, when given the opportunity to address the court at his sentencing, Moore said the only thing he was guilty of was hanging around the wrong people.
As far as I know, Mark still maintains his innocence. In fact, from the Toronto East Detention Centre, and you can see this on YouTube to this day, Mark recorded through the glass with a visitor a song, The Truth, in which he sings about having been wrongfully convicted of first-degree murder. So that seems to be the position he maintains even to this day.
First degree, but it wasn't me. Before the budget, I was like experimentary.
Did you ever see it?
I did. Murder in the first degree, right?
Murder in the first degree.
What really stands out about Mark Moore is just the sheer callousness. In promoting a rap video from jail, he's also trying to take advantage of the notoriety of it, and is quite proud of how it could have or may have affected his rap career.
We're getting this money.
Mark Moore appealed and lost his appeal of the 4 first-degree murder convictions.
Well, they upheld the convictions. As I recall, they found a couple of minor errors that they said would not have affected the verdict. I believe that Mark may be trying to seek further appeal to the Supreme Court of Canada.
Really, here's a guy who himself has been traumatized by gunfire, whose brother has been shot and killed in 2008. As a homicide investigator, I can't tell you the number of times I've stood at a murder scene or at a funeral and thought, really, if the suspects could be here and see the damage that they've caused, they wouldn't do this. And Mark Moore proved me wrong.
I was relieved. Happy that he's going to pay for the crime that he did, which is killing my son, Mike James. Mike James' son will be living without a father. The money that should be going to my grandson, the government is taking from my paycheck in order for Mark Moore to be surviving. Mike was the most friendliest person you could ever meet. Like, I will always tell him, I said, you're so naive because you think everybody in the world is good. Mike never had an enemy. Everybody that met him loved him, everybody. I wear this chain with me every time I go out, every time we have family function. It's like I'm bringing Mike with me. This chain was given to me by Mike's father. He knew that when he was 25, I would pass it over to him. I didn't get that opportunity. My plan is when his son is 25, I will pass it to him. Having to tell my grandson that he will never see his father again. Having to go to the cemetery and put flowers. It's a difficult time.
A foundation has been set up in Mike's honor to raise money for students at risk of dropping out of school. The foundation pays tribute to Mike's tenacity. He had just lost his hearing and was learning how to read lips, while still trying to overcome the trauma of being severely burnt in the fire. At the same time, he was starting high school in a new country. It was through a specialized dance program that Mike regained his self-confidence and graduated ready to pursue his dreams. Now, those dreams live on in the hearts of his family and friends, along with those of Courtney Facey, Jahmeel Spence, and Carl Cole. I'm Anthony Robart. Thank you for joining us tonight on Crime Beat.
Want more episodes of Crime Beat? Listen to the Crime Beat podcast now for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And for past episodes of Crime Beat, check out our YouTube page or download the Global Go app to watch on your phone.